Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of the Vate Village podcast. As I mentioned yesterday, we are doing some short interviews with the workshop leaders from our state conference. So the state conference theme this year is "Because Survival is Insufficient." Of course, a great quote from the very prescient Station 11 text, which I have recently had to reread, and it was a bit of a horror show to read at this time, to be honest. Had some nightmares after that. On the Saturday of state conference, so October the 3rd, you're able to attend a series of live online workshops, and we're using these special episodes of the podcast to, I guess, delve into some of the ideas that will be explored in those workshops. So today I've got with me Ali Baker from Wodonga Senior Secondary, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
And her workshop session for the Saturday is entitled "Scaffolding Tasks and Providing Accessibility Without Sacrificing Rigour." I love the title because I think that is probably a debate that happens constantly in English departments around the state. What inspired this session?
I guess I have a long history of working with students who have some kind of high literacy need. So whether they be students for whom English is an additional language, or students for whom literacy is just an enormous challenge for whatever reason, perhaps a diagnosis that they have, or perhaps their own fractured history with literacy or with schooling, a range of reasons really. And I've worked with students for whom literacy is a challenge for some time. And these students tend to see themselves, in my experience, as incapable of improvement. They often seem to pitch themselves as not able to learn anything new, and they often switch off in the classroom as a result. But I've taught in a range of school settings where if you intervene, if you come up with the right strategy or the right intervention, then these students can have a small aha moment where they do learn something or something clicks for them. And when they have that experience, that can foster a small inkling that maybe they can have longer term improvements. And so I guess it's about believing that those students who we've always not presumed that they can't do better, but maybe just the system is working against them, and we sometimes assume that something is outside of their capacity to improve. Instead, we actually see those students as able to as having enormous potential, as being able to improve. And if we just find the right way in, or the right strategy for that student. And so I think rather than dumbing down the text choices or dumbing down the tasks that we offer to students, we want to embrace rigour. We want to make things challenging for students so that they feel that they're having a really authentic experience of improvement, just like the other students in the class that don't have those literacy struggles.
That really resonates for me. I had a really fantastic teaching experience a couple of years ago with a class full of students who had that sort of low learner efficacy that you were talking about. And the course that I inherited really did sacrifice rigour. The students weren't studying the same texts as the rest of the cohort. And we made a really conscious choice as a team of teachers at that time to completely change that. And it really was one of the most rewarding experiences for me. And, you know, the data showed that they improved at the end of the year, but what was much more rewarding for me was that, like you're talking about, just that feeling of confidence that you watch grow. Because of course those learners are, you know, despite literacy challenges, they're able to grapple with ideas.
Yes.
And it's about giving them, like you say, those interventions that really work in that space.
Yeah, and literacy, viewing literacy, when students have a deficit with their literacy, it doesn't have to be permanent. So we know with English as an additional language, it's a temporary language deficit. And then with students that have certain diagnoses, it may not be a temporary deficit, but it's certainly an issue that we can attempt to intervene and put strategies in place that enable them to perform at the same level or even beyond the level of peers that don't have those initial literacy issues. It's just finding the right strategy or the right intervention for each of those students. So the session will aim to sort of hit students at when they're reading texts, how can we ensure that all the class are accessing those texts at an equal point or have equal accessibility in the texts that we choose. And making sure that the language of our instruction is diversified to make sure that all the students can tune into the text and have what they need to get through that text. And then activities at a group level, so how we can interact with students when they're working in smaller groups to ensure that they are as able or as equipped as the other students in their groups, and then those individualized strategies as well. And I guess part of the inspiration was that I think often schools, uh, there's the answer to students that have high literacy needs is that we will work with them one-to-one. And I just don't think, even though that might be the dream, I don't think that most schools have the funds or the time or the teaching staff to be able to offer that to all of those students that have those really high literacy needs. And what we really need is for all teachers to be able to develop a repertoire of skills so that they can cater for every single student in their classroom with a range of strategies, or do their best to anyway.
Absolutely. I can see so much in this session. I'm just thinking of myself and some of the classes I've had throughout my career, whether it's students who are EAL but in a mainstream English setting, either because they've exceeded the allowable number of years or what have you,
Yes.
or in the junior years. And of course, in every classroom, students with those literacy needs. So I think it's going to be an extremely practical session for all of those people who, like myself, have often sort of sat there wondering how to best serve students. And I think what you've just outlined is really being the most effective classroom teacher that we can be in terms of catering for every single student before us. So it's really exciting. So
Thanks.
if people want to sign up for your session, all they need to do is jump onto the VATE website and begin the registration process. They can email me for some more information. My address is educationofficer@vate.org.au. Thank you so much, Ali, for joining us today on the podcast. And I really encourage people to sign up for your session. I think that the kind of skills that you were talking about are all about making, I guess, the biggest difference we can for those students who may be disengaged in our classroom as well for a range of really understandable reasons. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Ernest.